it is not just the Senate that's making news. We've got developments on midterm races, the fight for women to be able to make decisions about their own bodies, and a whole lot more. So, of course, we need a political panel. They join us now to make it make sense. Luke Broadwater is a congressional reporter for the New York Times. Reese Colbert is the founder of Black Women Media Views. And Jim Dornan is a political and government affairs consultant at Jim Dornan Strategies. Welcome to you all. I'm happy you're here. There's lots of news today. Luke, I want to start with you because you're just going to lay it out for the viewers. You have been covering Congress for a while. Did you ever think we would see this day with this bill?
Well, I think you have to give Chuck Schumer a ton of credit. I mean, he fought some tremendous headwinds to bring this deal together. And I think most people thought the Biden agenda was dead in the water many months ago, that it could not be resurrected. And he secretly or quietly adopted a strategy of going one-on-one with these two senators, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, and securing these deals with them individually. And then he waited until they had secured bipartisan bill after bipartisan bill to announce the reconciliation deal, totally catching Republicans off guard and by surprise. And so I think that, if you had asked me 6 months ago, would they have a reconciliation bill? I would say no way. But here we are. They brought it home.
I'm with you. I was thoroughly surprised, to say the least. Look, this has been a big week for Democrats, but I think President Biden especially. You have additional 528,000 new jobs added to the economy. You've got the additional victories against al-Qaeda, the passage of the CHIPS Act, the PACT Act. Gas prices keep dropping. Reese, my question to you is, how can my former colleagues capitalize on this? Like, how would you talk about this to your followers? What are you telling the people on Black Women Media Views?
Well, Simone, thank you for having me. The thing about Democrats is they have always had the receipts. And what President Biden and the Democrats have been able to accomplish is truly unprecedented, particularly with the 50-50 Senate. But what the Republicans have the advantage of is the rhetoric, and that's what gets their base activated. Lindsey Graham talking about the jihad, that's a blast from the past. And they say trans bathrooms, and people freak out and they run to the ballot booth. So what Democrats really have to do to capitalize off of this is to understand that people have to hear the receipts, and they have to hear how these initiatives are going to directly impact their everyday lives, because they're feeling the pain at the pump, even though the gas prices are going down. But they have to understand that these investments in emissions, in our climate, in our energy, and our healthcare are going to tangibly benefit their lives. And if they go with the Republicans, they're going to be turning the car around in the wrong direction.
That sounds like a midterm message to me, Jim. Let's talk midterms, okay? I want to play some sound for you from Kari Lake. Folks at home, this is the Republican nominee for governor in Arizona. Take a listen.
I want to bring the Republican Party together. I mentioned that earlier. We're one big, happy, sometimes dysfunctional family, but we can come together.
Now, Jim, Kari Lake is an election denier, okay? Republicans who deny the validity of the 2020 election, who won't answer questions about it, that's who she is. How do folks like Kari Lake, the election deniers in the Republican Party, come together with the Republicans who have at least accepted the reality of 2020? Like, make it make sense for me, Jim. What's going on?
The sense is they don't. If you saw where Kari Lake's lost to Robeson, it was in the Phoenix suburb, where suburban women who have a problem with Trump anyway, and Trump's people, have basically rejected him and his candidates. So I don't see a path to Kari Lake winning whatsoever. I think Robeson will probably do what she needs to do to stay in the good graces of the party. I don't think she's going to go out there and do rallies with Lake at all. And frankly, people like Kari Lake scare me to death. I mean, that should not be the face of our party. And so, the bottom line is that I think the Arizona Republican Party is going to take a beating in November. I might go as far as saying a bloodbath. They've got 3 Trump candidates that are election deniers. And so
that's a lot for you to say, Jim. Look, people at home should know Jim is my friend. He's a real Republican, though. I know real Republicans, and Jim is a real Republican. So for you to say that, Jim, I do not take that lightly.
I appreciate that, Simone. By the way, congratulations on your wedding.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very difficult year for those kind of Republicans. And I will tell you that if Trump gets in before the midterms, first of all, I think it will be an absolute admission that he is losing grip on the party because he's trying to chase people out before anybody gets in. And I also think that it's going to be a disaster, along with the abortion ruling, which I know we'll talk about in a few minutes, with suburban women. And people get on me for harping on that. Those are the voters that are going to make a difference. Ron Brownstein had an incredible article this week in The Atlantic about how they will be the decision makers in this election. And if Republicans don't wise up and start paying a little bit more attention to them, we're going to get our clock clean.
You know, I think one of those issues where that is showing up is abortion. And particularly, you know, voters in Kansas, they overwhelmingly moved to keep abortion rights in the state constitution. Meanwhile, you've got Indiana state legislature, okay, who passed a near total ban on a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And this is really the first of its kind to be passed after the reversal of Roe. So, Luke, my question to you is, what are congressional Republicans saying when asked about that gap between, you know, essentially what voters want and what lawmakers are imposing on them?
Well, I think if you talk to them honestly, they will admit that the party went too far on abortion. And some of them have, you can watch closely, they've started to change their rhetoric some, and they're starting to emphasize things like exceptions, because some of these bills in some of these states were saying, we're about banning abortion with no exceptions whatsoever. And so I do think you're seeing a softening of the Republican Party after that Kansas vote. And they have, I think, realized that this is dampening their chances in the midterms. There's a lot of people, Democrats, but independents and some Republicans too, who don't want this sort of very hard right stance on abortion, and we're motivated to go to the polls. So, you know, House Republicans have been counting on sweeping in with this big wave and then also taking back the Senate. And now you're seeing people like Mitch McConnell say, well, maybe we'll hold the Senate, maybe we won't. I think they realize that their election chances have been dampened some by abortion.
I mean, Reese, I think Luke makes a really important point. From my perspective, you know, some of my Republican friends, they were not running on fining doctors and jailing doctors, right, or forcing 10-year-olds to have babies by their rapists, but that's exactly what is happening. Are the people you are speaking with on a regular, are they alarmed by this at all?
Actually, I don't think that there's enough alarm about what's happening. To your point, Simone, they aren't running on these things, but if you look at the record, it's already happening. Greg Abbott in Texas, he just signed last year jailing people who prescribe abortion medication, even through telemedicine, after a certain period. And so what Republicans have already done, what they're continuing to do in places like Indiana, are happening. It's just, as Luke and you are pointing out, the rhetoric might be softening a little bit, but that's about it. The problem, though, is that the single issue abortion voters are Republican voters. So we have to find a way to where the Democratic voters, are the disaffected and disillusioned 50% of the country that doesn't vote voters, see that this is an issue that everybody needs to be activated and engaged on, and making sure that what happens on the ballot, we don't get an up or down vote on abortion, specifically like what happened in Kansas. We have to vote on the legislators. And that's what people need to be recognizing when they go or choose not to go to the ballot box in November.
Make it make sense with the political panel today. Luke Broadwater, Reese Colbert, and Jim Dornan. Thank y'all very much.